Marking quickly on that. So, look, you said it, 20% of male employees in the city think that diversity's gone too far. And we know that boards are predominantly still white men. Where are the allies who are making sure that there are reporting lines that Alicia has referred to and that the culture has changed?
It's a huge. It's a huge problem. So certainly in our evidence, 50% of the women who we asked said they'd been sexually harassed or had experienced misogyny in the workplace. Not one of them wanted me to share their name. Yep. For obvious reasons, not one of them wanted to come here in person today, which is why I'm here. I got a letter yesterday from one of our members. It's a harrowing letter, but the last paragraph reads, "So many otherwise, at least relatively good men, turned a blind eye because he was a partner and dealing with his behaviour was probably too problematic." I think my call, and you're talking about male allies, is this is a male problem. This is happening to our mothers, our wives, our girlfriends, our sisters, our daughters. And men have got to stand up and solve the problem in the workplace at all levels every day.
Talking about culture in the city, and a number of our respondents to our request for evidence said that it's still an old boys network. And could I ask each of you whether you think that that's true, whether it's changing, and if not, which are the particularly worst culprits?
Thank you. I think part of the problem here is a lot of our focus has been on diversity. And counting numbers, counting the number of women in an organisation, rather than focusing on inclusion. And I think we need to start focusing on inclusion because we need to change the culture. It's clear from our E2W members that the lived experience of women in the workplace and in the city is very different from the lived experience of men. And with Men for Inclusion, we measure that by something we call the lived experience gap. All the work and the research we've done shows that women's experiences in the workplace are generally about 30% poorer than men's. So there are things that happen at often called microaggressions. We call them accidental sexisms. They're being interrupted in meetings, having ideas stolen, only being promoted on past performance rather than on potential, being given the admin tasks rather than those tasks that are appropriate to the P&L. All of these things are happening to women every day in the workplace, and generally men are completely blind to them. And when we talk to men about them and show men that these things are happening, they generally then get on board and start changing that culture from the bottom up.
So there is hope.
There is hope.
Thank you.
There is hope. Research shows that 20% of men in most corporate environments now think that diversity has gone too far, and it's now yes. That's a McKinsey report. Right. Our research also shows that a significant proportion of the rest of the male population are completely passive in this and don't think it's about them. And at Men for Inclusion, when we're talking to men in the corporate environment and working with our clients in the city, actually answering the question, what's in it for me, for those men, talking about how male stereotypes have changed. We were talking about paternity leave just then. I didn't have paternity leave. Sorry, that was a long time ago, Harriet. But actually, there's a significant benefit in inclusion to men, and we don't include them in the conversation. If we include them in the conversation, we'll engage with them and things will change. Culture will change, behaviours will change, and values will change.
Okay.
By 1.7%. On our current trajectory, it will take financial services firms another 70 years for the gender pay gap to close. Has gender pay gap reporting simply not worked? And is it time for more stringent measures? Should we have time-bound targets and real consequences if you fail to meet targets? Or should the government start publishing a list and naming and shaming those with the worst pay gaps?
I concur with everything that's been said, including the sort of virtue signalling, the what are we going to say this year, what are we going to do? But also I'd make the point that all of these gender pay gap stats, etc., are just measuring diversity. Yeah. And there's nothing, and I think it's really important that we also find measures to measure inclusion, because there's no point in having more diversity if the culture isn't changing, if the behaviours aren't changing and the values aren't changing. Women having to perform and be fixed to succeed in a man's world with the current culture isn't the answer. We need to change the culture, and we need to measure and put pressure on changing the culture.